Okay, my friends, I'm just going to start this off by talking about Simon Magus, who was called a sorcerer, and he tried to buy himself into being an apostle, basically, is what they're saying for. The act of simony is paying for position is named for Simon, who tried to buy his way into the power of the apostles. I think he had just realized how wrong he was and wanted to be so deeply involved that his only way of understanding to become an apostle was, please teach me, teach me, teach me. And when they rebuked him and really came down on him, he just begged for forgiveness. I think he's been not portrayed correctly. And they claim, is the father of Gnosticism. Gnosticism was in long before him. I just don't think they understand what happened here. Now, these are the apostles. Here's the key. These are disciples, apostles, basically the same thing. All right, 12 apostles. All right, in Christianity, theology, and eschatology, the apostles, particularly the 12 apostles, also known as the 12 disciples, were the primary disciples of Jesus according to the New Testament during the life and ministry of Jesus, the 1st century A.D. All right, so these are right first century, right in the beginning. Apostles were his closest followers and became the primary teachers of the gospel and messages of Jesus. There is also an Eastern Christian tradition derived from the Gospel of Luke that there were 70 apostles during the time of Jesus' ministry. Apparently, the apostles could touch people and change things, or he wanted to get that power of being an apostle, and I'm just trying to understand it right now. All right, but here's the key here. Hold on. This talks about Jesus coming back to earth, and that's where we get into the Gnostics. It says the commissioning of the 12 apostles during the ministry of Jesus, described as the synoptic gospels. After his resurrection, after he came back from being dead, Jesus sent 11 of them, because Judas had died, by the Great Commission to spread his teaching to all the nations. He came back and he worked with these apostles for 11 years, is what I heard. In Pauline epistle, Paul, although not one of the original 12, described himself as an apostle, saying he was called by the resurrected Jesus. He was called by the resurrected Jesus during his road to Damascus. He later describes himself as an apostle to the Gentiles. The period associated events in timeline of early Christianity during the lifetimes of the 12 apostles is the apostolic age. And in the Gnostic text, it says Christ was literally here back on earth with them, teaching them. All right, so let's look into the Gnostics and see what Pistis Sophia says about Jesus coming back to earth. Okay, my friend, very, very difficult subject. I am going to be talking about the Gnostic texts and all of the other ancient stories of the different cultures on earth versus the Bible. What makes sense? What equals the same thing in both of these accounts? Because in the Bible, you're not going to read about Quetzalcoatl. And I think Quetzalcoatl was real. There's just absolutely no question about that. And he was all recorded in these other cultures as their god. Now, how many gods were there? Did they work together? We know about Typhon and the fish in the desert, and he was attacking the gods, which were of many, not just one. And where are they now if they're gods, if they're immortal? There's so much to think about here, rather than just reading one book and saying that's the end of the story. That book is incomplete as far as I'm concerned. And they're all incomplete. Because they didn't write about Jesus Christ, I don't think. Maybe they did. Maybe that's Jesus Christ to them. Maybe Jesus Christ was a multitude of figures for every different culture. I don't know. I am looking back into the Gnostic text because that supposedly is the exact words from Jesus Christ when he was here on earth, speaking, and it was recorded and buried in the ground so it wouldn't be destroyed because of the bad powers that were wiping out all of these stories that from Christ about God and about the light. Really, we are light, and I'm going to get into all of that stuff. But the Gnostic texts are way different than the Bible. However, I find a bunch of stuff in there. Jesus said about there's nothing hidden that won't be uncovered. There's nothing buried that won't be dug up. We are light. When you come to understand the world, you will discover it's a carcass. When you come to understand the world, you discover the body, which is bodies of everything. And you have some deep anatomical detail, by the way. And he says if you start to search, and the only ones we care about, the ones that are searching, they're on that side of the border that say, I'm looking, I'm thinking, show me something. That's the people I'm interested in. These people, they're done already. If you're searching, don't stop searching. When you find, you will be disturbed, and then you will marvel. And if you don't be disturbed and marvel at the things I show, there's something wrong with your mind. That's just a fact. It is disturbing. It's scary. But life is disturbing and scary. And when I put myself into some other people's positions in life right now, I wouldn't want to be alive. I would not want to be in a position, I can't even imagine. I've been so fortunate my whole life and never appreciated it the way I should have. And these people that, oh God, it makes me want to just break down in tears. It's a tough world, my friends, and I think it's about to come to a conclusion, because it's just, it shouldn't work this way. Anyway, that's a whole other story. Sometimes you get into these deep feelings. All right, let's get started. So I'm saying you got to take into account these things are not in the Bible, but this is a fact. That's Quetzalcoatl. He's eating a giant. And when I talk about a giant, where do you see the size of Quetzalcoatl? I think most of you have seen him. Here he is right here. You see Quetzalcoatl? That's his head. Now the head is a different shade because it's a different, like scales or whatever it was. The very green is feathers. Feathers, they grind them up and sell it. It's called feather meal. You put it on plants, they pop green like a cork. His body runs all the way up the East Coast. There's his shoulder, comes around. His feathers at the end of his tail are the Green Mountains. These are feathers. Those, my friends, are feathers, and they are very green. That's what they call them, the Green Mountains, because feathers make things grow green, and they come all the way up the East Coast. You see how big he is? From all the way to here to his, right there where his throat comes out. And this is where his throat is. You see this? There's his throat, goes right up around, right. It's a river now. But at one time it was his throat. And it comes all the way around, and then it comes all the way down around here. It's buried under the ground here. And it comes all the way up the East Coast. There's his headdress. And that, my friends, is Tornado Alley. And I believe it's got to do with, a lot of it's to do with the terrain here and the actual feathers. Let me show you something. All right, here's Quetzalcoatl. There he is. And there's his beards. Now, I didn't even mention the beards. Whoops. Hold on. You see his beards? There's one here and there's one there. Boom, boom, boom. And you can see there's color to these lakes, which are from his beards. Now, what this was at one time, I don't know. But these little spiky things are from his beards. And I'd like to know the chemistry, it'd be interesting. But these two are the beards coming down. And these are the feathers that are his headdress. You see it right there? Here he is all the way up the East Coast. So we're talking a creature that's absolutely stunningly large. And also Typhon. We all know about Typhon. And his buddy the fish, who he was trying to kill. And this is all written about in Apollodorus. I mean, in exact words. It says Typhon was attacking the gods. They changed themselves into animals to try to avoid them. But Typhon ended up getting the fish. And I believe it was Aries. Somebody says, oh, it must have been Pisces. I don't know. It's a fish. I don't care who. Give him a name, whatever you want to call him. And Typhon is a dragon, and there's his throat, and it's called the Drach River, which is 1,100 miles long, and it's a dragon throat. And these are the dragon scales. You see, this is his jowls of his throat, and then it comes down and it tightens up into a nice tight throat. You see how he has little jowls here? And that's just basically what would happen. So his head could twist around like this. Down here, it tightens up and turns into a regular solid throat. But up here, he's got little jowls. And down here is this dragon scaled tight throat. And of course there's this place where he eats giants and things. All the way down, all the way down. I think this is his tonsils. There's something, I don't know what it is. But it's some kind of an organ. It's in his throat. That's not just nothing. You see those little tubes and stuff? What it's doing there, it's feeding something into there, those two places. You see the change in color? This one has the same thing. Right there. And these, of course, they're dragon scales, because it's a dragon and that's a scaled throat. And it runs all the way across North Africa. Now, I don't think there's anything they say about specifically in the Bible about this, but they do specifically say it in Hesiod and Ovid and some of the other ones that talked about the dragon attacking the fish. So I have to look at all the text. The Bible's great. I have a lot of stuff in there that makes total sense to me. 100% sense. But there's other things that don't make sense to me. And there's other things I have no idea about. And I haven't dug deep enough into the Bible and read everything about the Bible, because I've seen enough to understand that it's basically to glorify Jesus Christ as the Son of God and the Savior of mankind. That's how I take the Bible, and it's just as an overview of the whole Bible. Glorify Jesus Christ as the Savior who gave himself to enlighten mankind. That's the only thing I can take. Why would he just die on the cross and think everybody's going to be saved? No. I'm here and I'm showing you this is how bad people are. This is the world you live in, which is a disaster. It's a corpse. And I'm going to let them show you, because you loved me. I am the one that you loved. I love you, and they will destroy me. And for you to miss this is not going to work. You're not going to come to me. I am showing you by allowing them to do this to me. That's the only way I can take that. Because just for him to be slaughtered like that, and just horrifyingly terrible death, it doesn't make sense. And everything else after this, once you get into the Gnostic text, it starts to make sense. And Jesus Christ, I say he was exactly as advertised, but not necessarily advertised completely in the Bible. In the Gnostic text, I think he's more It's more enlightening because he shows himself as being the light. He is the light. Everything's about light. And we're going to get into that pretty deep. So again, this is not to change your beliefs in anything, because if you believe in Jesus Christ as being the Son of God, I do too. And if you think he's a Savior, I do too. But for you just to hope to find the best, I'm not sure that's the best thing. Although Christ said just deep belief is enough. Now, I'm not sure that's true without being searching. Having a deep belief is just a belief in anything. I could tell you something, you believe it, you believe it. And then if you look at it, you say, that doesn't make any sense. Well, that's up to you. Now, and again, this is not to make anybody believe anything different than they believe now. I couldn't care less what you believe, but the ones that don't have the information to what I'm showing, those are the ones I'm trying to reach out to. Now, this is Pistis Sophia, and I want you to get a feel for how important the light is. So I'm showing this a little ahead of time so that you can hear this, and then we'll go back to the beginning. But listen to this.
Without their ceasing till the 9th hour of the morrow. Chapter 4. But the disciples sat together in fear, and were exceedingly great agitation, and were afraid because of the great earthquake which took place. And they wept together, saying, What will then be? Peradventure the Saviour will destroy all regions? Thus saying, they wept together. While they then said this, and wept together, then on the 9th hour of the morrow the heavens opened, and they saw Jesus descend, shining most exceedingly. And there was no measure for his light in which he was. For he shone more radiantly than at that hour which he had ascended to the heavens, so that men in the world cannot describe the light which was on him. And it shot forth light rays in great abundance. And there was no measure for the rays, and its light was not alike together, but it was of diverse kind and diverse type, some rays being more excellent than others. And the whole light consisted together. It was of threefold kind, and the one kind was more excellent than the other. The second, that in the midst, was more excellent than the first which was below. And the third, which was above them all, was more excellent than the two which were below. And the first glory, which was placed below them all, was like to the light which had come over Jesus before he had ascended into the heavens, and was like only itself in its light. And the three light modes were of diverse light kinds, and they were of diverse type, one being more excellent than the other. Chapter 5. And it came to pass then, when the disciples saw this, that they feared exceedingly, and were in agitation. Then Jesus, the compassionate and tender-hearted, when he saw his disciples that they were in great agitation, spake with them, saying, Take courage, it is I, be not afraid. Chapter 6.
Okay, I hope you've got a sense of how important the light is, and being of diverse types, and three different types. One more exceedingly better than the other, and so forth. Let's look at that in a physics type of way, scientific way. What does he mean by they were of a diverse type? And let's examine it again in a little slow motion. Okay, a little more on the light. Listen to this now.
Is the 24th mystery, from within without, those which are in the orders of the second space of the first mystery. And that light power came down over Jesus and surrounded him entirely, while he was seated removed from his disciples. And he had shone most exceedingly, and there was no measure for the light which was on him. And the disciples had not seen Jesus because of the great light in which he was, or which was about him, for their eyes were darkened because of the great light in which he was. But they saw only the light, which shot forth many light rays, and the light rays were not like one another, but the light was of a diverse kind, and it was of divers type. From below upward, one ray more excellent than the other. In one great immeasurable glory of light, it stretched from under the earth right up to heaven, And when the disciples saw that light, they fell into great fear and great agitation. Chapter 3. Jesus ascendeth into heaven. It came to pass then, when that light power had come down over Jesus, that it gradually surrounded him entirely. Then Jesus ascended, or soared into the height, shining most exceedingly in an immeasurable light. And the disciples gazed after him, and none of them spake, until he had reached unto heaven. But they all kept in deep silence. This then came to pass on the 15th day of the moon, on the day on which it is full in the month Tybi.
I'm going to stop this here, but I just wanted you to get a real sense of how important this light is. And they go into the three diverse types of light and how one is more exceedingly better than the other and so forth. And I think in a physics sense, I think I kind of understand it. Because light is light. I mean, you know, and I kind of understand the three diverse types they're talking about, the red, green, and blue. And we'll get into a little more about it, but we're going to start back at the beginning. And it's very confusing. That's why I want to start here and tell you how important the light is. This is deep stuff. And this was in a Nag Hammadi text buried literally for a couple thousand years. And they were just dug up in 1945, and there was over 50 different texts. And this particular one is Pistis Sophia. It's a Gnostic textbook, and it's very, very deep and confusing. And all of these are more and more chapters. And I did contact these people, and they're very, very nice. They said, yes, go ahead and use whatever you need. Here it was right here. Yes, use what you need. And that was 9 months ago or so. 9 months ago, and I've been studying it, and I really didn't use much of it. I threw in a couple of little shots here and there, but now I have come to such an understanding of all of these crazy things that nobody would ever even consider to think could possibly be true. Now I have to look into this. This is extremely confusing. I mean, as confusing as it can get. But I understand the light, and I understand that literally nothing that we have been told is true. And it appears to me that it is a concerted effort to suppress the actual truth of God, for sure, and, creation instead of evolution, absolutely. And it appears that there's some other stuff going on here that I can't put my fingers on right at the moment, but it's not truth and honesty and compassion and all the things that we thought we would get from the people that we trust as our leaders, our teachers, our confidants. And I have a hard time with that now. I really do. I wish I didn't, but I do. Now I have to make this point because we are made of light. We are made of these two particles. And that's the dark matter, which gives us substance. And this is the energy matter, which gives, to me, it could be spirit. Because when you leave, this is what stays behind. Energy has no mass to speak of. It is virtually no mass at all. And energy could be spirit. They always talk about the treasury of the light. That's the light part of matter. This is the dark part of matter, which is substance. It's the material part of matter. This, as far as I'm concerned, could be your spirit, could be your soul. And we were able to divide those. So we know they come apart. It's not like they're stuck together and they can't come apart. We divided them right here through the venturi, and the black separated from the white, and the white went all by itself, which, as far as I'm concerned, that's what's going to happen to us when we die. The black is going to stay somewhere here and do whatever it does from your material body, and the white, I would assume, is going to leave that because it no longer, it could be your spirit. That's all I'm saying. Just a guess, just a theory. Okay, my outstanding friends, this is going to be a real trip. We're going to be going through Pistis Sophia, and what I want you to focus in on is this. They're talking about light a lot. The treasury of the light. It's light, light, light. It's all about that. This is extremely long, basically, and every chapter or chapters have segments, and there's a ton of them. Now, what I want you focusing on is the light, because everything there is made of light. There is only two particles that exist, the black ones and the white ones. And the white ones can be any color, but that's it. The white ones can be all these different colors, basically. These are the flavors. But primarily, it's a glowy one that has all the energy and no mass to speak of. And the one that's just all mass and only attracts the white is extremely attractive to the white. These are the two particles that are the basis of everything. And the two of them back to back make up actually a photon of light. We were able to split the black from the white and break this from the photon and down into its basic components, and there is nothing smaller. That's an electron neutrino, all the energy and no mass. That's a muon neutrino, all the mass and only attractive energy. It doesn't emit, it doesn't absorb, and it doesn't reflect. It's dark matter and gravity. That's what my claim is. And this is what creates everything there is. We are made out of dark matter. That's the only thing that has mass. We have mass. Everything we're standing on is saturated with dark matter, because every particle there is has a counterpart that is a dark particle. And when you add up 1,839 of these particles, all the black ones go to the center, and the white ones crust around it. And at that specific number, for some reason, that one atomic mass unit, it becomes stable. You get more than that, it's because it's an isotope. It's ionized. It has too many particles. It wants to give some up. You have less of these than you should. It wants to take some more on. That's the whole nature of how everything that works in chemistry is 1,839 of these black and whites make up a he's saying a neutron, but yes, he's right. All protons. A friend of mine, Oscar Rosales, did this absolutely fabulous job. And originally I had the wrong number, and he corrected it. All protons are odd numbered, yes. 1839, which means it wants one more, or it wants to give one up to become 1838 and share one, or it wants to take one on and come up to 1840. That's neutral. It doesn't want to get one more, and it doesn't want to give one up. But if it's down around 1820 or so, it's unstable. It wants 20 more. And if it was 1860, it would have 20 too many, and it would want to throw those off. That's what stability is. And in between those, all those other numbers, and there's tons of numbers, they are what's called half-lives. They will decay down towards stability. Sometimes it's very fast, sometimes it takes forever to get down to that stable state. But eventually they will seek stability by giving some up or taking some on. Okay, once again, this is the Nag Hammadi library, a whole extensive number of books found. And this is the secret sayings of Jesus, supposedly spoken to doubting Thomas here, and he recorded them while Jesus was here walking around on earth. And he said, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. After they have reigned, they will rest. And it goes on to say that there was nothing hidden. Now all of a sudden, everything's going to be in your face. No, Jesus said, know what is in your face, and what is hidden from you will be disclosed to you. So you have to first of all look, and everything is just going to open up if you look. For there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, and there is nothing buried that will be not raised. And he talks about us being the light, number 50, There's just some things in here that are very disturbing, yes, but some things make total sense. And Jesus said, if they say to you, where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light. And when you hear Pistis Sophia and all of the ancient texts, everything is about the light, the pure light. We come from the light. He ascended to the light. He came down the light. The rays of light, one was more brilliant than the other. They were of the triple kind. It goes on and on about the light. Very, very detailed accounts of light. And he said, we come from the light. So where have you come from? Say to them, we have come from the light. It doesn't get any more obvious that we have come from the light, from the place where that light, the light, came into being by itself. It came into being by itself and then established us. It established itself and appeared in their image. So that must be what the God's image is. All right? And it's they and not just one. So if they say to you, is it you? Say, we are its children. We are the children of the light. Just like Jesus is a child of the light, we are the child of the light as well. We are the chosen ones, the chosen particles of the living Father. Somebody that just set us off and turned us into living matter. Everything else is matter all over the place. It's not. Anyway. If they ask you, what is the evidence of your Father, you say to them, it is motion and rest. And that's exactly what it is. Everything there is made of light. Light makes up everything. It makes up my fingernails. It makes up this feather. It makes up the screen. Light makes everything. I call it atomic vapor. All right, you follow me? It's just, it flitters around as light and particles, and it congeals into masses that are stable at certain quantities. And life determines the quantities by using enzymes and bacteria. It gets a little advanced on the chemistry, biology side. But Jesus also said, listen to this. This blew my mind. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world meaning what? Most people say meaning the world, meaning the people of the world. Well, he says, whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. And the people they're just walking dead as far as I'm concerned, almost all of them. And whoever has discovered a carcass, of that person the world is not worthy. All right, so it's either one way or the other. It's you discovered that the people of this world are literally carcasses. They're not thinking, they're not doing what they should be, it's right in my mind. And or it's the earth itself is the world. That I don't know. And number 80 gives another one about the body. I find this fascinating, these two accounts here. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world has discovered the body. If you know the world, you have discovered the body. Well, if you know the world, it's just nothing more than body parts, so you have discovered, literally, you've become an anatomist. I'm not kidding you. Whoever has come to the world, known the world, has become an anatomist. Discovered the body. And whoever has discovered the body, of that one the world is not worthy. I don't know what to think. All I can say is those are two things. The light, I've shown, light is nothing but those tiny little particles. It makes everything. And that's the dipole electron flood theory. And this is pretty solid, I'm going to tell you right now. I've shown this, almost can't be denied. And it's the same thing the Fermilab found, was these two particles. And they make up everything. And we separated them going through the Venturi. So we know we can separate them. We know they glue together as basically dipole electrons. Two dipole electrons make up a photon, which is light. This adds into thing, makes heat. It's not electricity, it's heat. Just that is electricity. That's all by itself electricity. It has no weight at all. You put tons of those into a battery, the battery doesn't get any heavier. But when you add heat into something, it gets heavier. This is heat, because that has a weight to it. That does not. You take two of these back to back, and you have a field surrounding it, and it becomes a basketball. It hits and it bounces back. That's a photon. That's why we see it bounces back. These don't bounce back. They incorporate in their heat. They just sort of flow around, and they're not moving fast like a photon. Photons got to be going pretty fast. But it changes a lot of stuff, space chemistry, space-time distance, or redshift. And this is dipole electron flood theory. Oscar Rosales did this for me just to be a wonderful human being, and did a fabulous job, as you can see. It's very simple. That's it. That's the whole thing right there. And this, originally I thought it could be this or it could be this. Where you've got, and you are going to have a distance, the dark matter is going to go to the center. I have no question about that. It's going to glob in the center. Then you're going to have a ring of really tight ones that are just tighter than hell against that center because they're really glued. They're just glued together. Then the green ones come out a little further. I don't think there's basically a separation line between. I think they're field to field at that point. There's no like barrier and another barrier at the red. I think they're all just pushing against, as I showed in the other model, which is this one right here. Oscar, you did a fabulous job, my friend. It's this here. They're field to field. And you never see the dark matter. Nobody's ever seen it because every time you look at something, it bounces back at you. So you can't. This does not absorb any energy because it's already surrounded. It doesn't absorb because this doesn't want it. So it doesn't absorb. These things bounce back at you. It doesn't reflect because there's nothing to reflect. It's completely covered. So it doesn't absorb. It doesn't reflect, and it doesn't emit. This is actually absolute zero. That has no temperature whatsoever. It has no energy to speak of. It's just a mass. And the dipole nature of our atmosphere basically proves it. The ionosphere is thousands of degrees. Just below it is minus 100 and something degrees. This has no temperature to speak of. This, when it scrubs in space, it gets hotter than hell, like 2,000 degrees, almost 3,000. And then just below it, right at that layer, between the ionosphere and the next layer down, it breaks, is the dipole, and then down here it's minus 100 degrees. That's insane.